Hi everyone, this is James here again. I'm here to talk about another dream that I've had. With this one, I'm pretty much going to go straight into it because there's a fair bit to cover. It was a dream that I had on the night of the 3rd of October going into the 4th, and it's taken me a few days just to kind of bring it together. There was an awful lot of imagery in this one. Some of it was what even I would consider cliche dream imagery, and yet that's what was there, so that's what I'm going to talk about. One interesting thing that happened in this dream was that there were two instances in the dream where I was asleep in the dream. The first instance happened earlier on in this kind of bigger picture of this dream. At some point, I had woken up and I was talking to a friend, and we were talking about shadow play on the ground. There was something about what the shadows were doing, and I was commenting that was almost exactly like what I saw in my dream. The words I used were to the effect of, in the dream space, what this meant was da 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 da. And I think I was essentially referencing this series of dream reflections in my dream. It was pretty odd. So that was the first instance where I was asleep and then woke up and talked about something that I had dreamt about in my dream. The second one came a little bit later. I found myself in what was kind of like a lounge room. It was a pretty relaxed, recreational sort of environment. There were people milling around, sitting on couches and that kind of thing. I seemed to know most of the people in the room. And at some point, somebody handed me a guitar. And it was an 8-string guitar. Now, 8-string guitars are not commonly used. However, there's one band that has made it their business to become experts at the 8-string guitar because of its deep, heavy sounds. And it's this band, Meshuggah, which is why I thought it was appropriate to wear the shirt for this reflection. Somebody handed me an 8-string guitar and said, "Go on, have a go." And I was a little bit uncomfortable about it because it's, someone else's guitar. Plus, I'm not used to playing 8-string guitars. I've only ever really played a 6-string. So I was, all right, I'll give it a go. And I remember having a lot of trouble putting the thing on. With the strap and everything, it just seemed really unfamiliar to me, which is bizarre because I know how to put a guitar on. But in the dream, I had trouble. I managed to sling it over me somehow, and then I was like, oh, what am I going to play? Now, it was somehow remotely connected to an amp, so you could hear, if you hit a chord, you could hear it somewhere, distorted. I thought, well, probably the only thing I could even have a go at here would be something like the song Bleed by Meshuggah, which incidentally is my favourite metal song of all time. I think it's got the best riff ever constructed for a heavy metal song. That one that sort of goes... it's a flawless heavy metal song. So I started playing that, and that's what you just heard, by the way. Check them out, they're amazing. I started playing that riff just to at least have a go. Somebody else in the room recognised it, and they were sort of like, oh, yeah, not bad, I know where you're going with that. I certainly wasn't doing it justice, but I was having a go, and it was at least recognisable. So, shortly after that, I found myself just sort of leaning back into what I thought was the couch, just relaxing with the guitar, and I promptly fell asleep. So this is the second time in the dream where I went to sleep. I woke up shortly thereafter, and I had a doona sort of pulled up over my head. It was sort of just chilling under the blanket, and I still had the guitar around me. And I was like, I might just strum a little tune here, and it was something pretty chilled out, pretty simple, 1 or 2 chord progressions, very slow. It wasn't really metal at all. I liked the tune. But it didn't take long for somebody else in the room. 2 girls who I used to work with, in fact, who came over, pulled the doona back and said, "Do you reckon you could stop playing that song? It's killing us. That it's that bad." And I was just like, "Really? You don't like it?" And they said, "We hate country music." And I'm thinking, that wasn't country music at all. Not by a long shot. And I liked the tune. So I was a little bit offended, but I said, alright, whatever. And they said, besides, you've got to get to the shower and haircut room. Time is of the essence here. So I sort of pulled myself out of the bed, got the guitar off, and I was like, that's right. I've got to get to the shower and haircut room. Where's my team? Now, suddenly I became aware that there was some sort of competition going on that was team-based, and there was a time-critical situation happening. And I knew that I had to get to that room for the shower and haircut. Now, what happened at this moment was I became aware that the competition was significant between the teams. Nicole Kidman was in one of the other teams, and she was one of the leaders of the group. And she was really competitive. She wanted to get out in front of me and get to that shower and haircut room first, which would effectively put our team behind, and we'd be losing the race, whatever the hell it was. Nicole Kidman had blue hair in the dream, just plain as day, it was blue. I caught a reflection of myself in the mirror as well, and it definitely wasn't me in the reflection. I don't know who it was, just some other random person. His head was sort of shaved like mine, but what he had that was different was a kind of a fashionable tuft of hair that was growing out of one spot here and kind of slicked down on the side of his head. That was the only bit of hair that he had. So I don't know what they were going to cut at the haircut room, but that was the plan. So I bolted out of the room to get out in front of Nicole Kidman, and I moved myself down this hallway and sort of shut this door behind me just to buy myself a little bit of time because she was chasing. When I closed the door, I realised that I was in the kitchen of the house that I grew up in when I was a teenager. Everything was the same except for one thing. In the bench space, there was a massive TV there. It was like 65 inches and it was kind of built into the bench. My dad was in a corner just sort of cooking, doing something quietly. On the TV, there was a music video playing, and it was kind of like an older song, like sort of 60s era. And I think the artist was supposed to be Tom Petty because he had died the day before in reality. So my mind was aware of that story. But it wasn't Tom Petty on the screen. It was actually John Denver. I don't know why my brain got the two mixed up, but it did. It was a Tom Petty song, but it was John Denver singing it. It was a very strange song, but it captivated me. The song was about sheep and shepherds, and he was kind of out there in this field amongst these sheep and shepherds, singing about them. It had this ridiculous chorus that sort of went ba 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 ba, and it was like, the ba ba thing was obviously a reference to sheep and the old nursery rhyme. And I'm watching this going, Jesus, only Tom Petty could have pulled off this song. Because this is basically a kindergarten song dressed up into a 60s pop song that kind of works. I'm amazed, and I said that to my dad. I was like, only he could pull this off, because this is kind of ridiculous. At this point, Nicole Kidman pulled that door back and sort of came around behind me and sort of got past me and stopped to turn around and mock me for basically falling behind and losing my space now in the race to the shower and haircut room. And I looked at her and I was irritated that, yes, I had sacrificed my position in the race, but the song on the TV, the music video, seemed more important to me at that moment, so I let it go. So off she went. She'd won that battle, and I kept watching the song. Now, it was at this point that the dream reality and the music video reality converged. I became aware of a storm outside the house, and it was pretty big. It came up from out of nowhere, and the roof was being pelted with what I thought was hail. But at the same time, in the music video, the participants in the film were subjected to a storm as well. So it was affecting them too. The difference was that it wasn't hail that was falling down around them. And this is where it goes into cliche dream territory. It was apples. Apples were falling from the sky all over this vast field or prairie, whatever it was. And I was like, Jesus, those are apples. But they didn't seem too concerned about it. Tom Petty / John Denver kept singing to the camera. The sheep just sort of kept munching grass and standing still. And the shepherds lay down on their front, just on their stomachs like this, and just relaxed while they waited for the storm to pass. And there were apples falling down all over the place and rain and stuff like that. It was really strange. And then, bang, that was it. That was the end of the dream. I think I woke up at that point. It was a really strange one. I haven't really been able to pick apart what this might have been about or what it meant. My only interpretation of one aspect of it was the storm. It's possible that a storm did happen that was happening around me in the real world while I was asleep, and the sound of that influenced the dream and sort of came into the dream that way. As for all the other bizarre things that happened in this dream, I don't know. It was a bit of a mishmash. But I felt the need to kind of reflect on this one just because it was a bit... Well, it was so image heavy, this one. And also the fact that I had been asleep twice in the dream. That's rare. That doesn't happen to me very often, where I'm essentially doing the Inception thing of going into a dream within a dream. So that was kind of unusual. Anyway, I thought I'd just get it all down. It'll be interesting to reflect on this at some point down the track to see what it might mean, because I have no idea at this point. But anyway, that was my dream from the 3rd of October. As always, if you've got something, excuse me, please feel free to share it, and I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time.